wanted to film this. If this comes out anything like it looks, it's really pretty. Now maybe I'll be able to do a little resolve work. But I thought I'd just go ahead and shoot this little interesting and quite pretty little spot here. Hayden, they've just done a really nice job. So, yeah. And then there's this cool house. Side, but you can't see much of it. They've got purple lights and different types of siding, and it's just it's artistic. It's definitely an artistic looking thing. The last time I was on this road, my camera shut down and I lost a lot of good footage. It was also a little bit stormier. Clouds were in. The clouds are gone today. Well, they're behaving. Behave, clouds. And if you don't know where we're at, I am back on Highway 14, about 5 miles south of Walden. And I like to catch this area reasonably. I like to catch all of it because it's a very cool area. And what I want to do is I want to film. And I know film is an antiquated term because I'm videoing, but I like the term film, easier to say. And you know what I mean. What I want to do is film all the way up to the summit of Cameron Pass, turn around and film back down, catch all of the west side, and see which side looks better, or if maybe the whole thing is good. Maybe I'll put the whole thing out there. But the forest range, and I should probably be more specific when I say forest range, I actually mean the state forest. That's the name, that's the actual name of the forest and of the mountains, this mountain range that we're looking at over to our left. Yeah, where those two. Funny, I'm in the same spot I was in the last time I tried to film this, or I did film it, but those two glacial valleys are showing up quite nicely. I'm really not sure what stopped the filming last time. I do think I had a bad battery though. Yeah, actually that's probably the reason, considering that when I did put the battery, or when I started the camera, it died about a minute later, which is typical for if it's got a bad battery. It'll rejuvenate itself just enough to go a little bit. Anyway, so today is January 7th. It's about a little afternoon. Actually, it's 12:34. How do you like that? And let me just make sure this is pulled all the way back. I sure hope we're doing good here. in the bright sunny conditions, I can't see the monitor. And I have my sunglasses on, but I'm looking out at this, and this is bright sunny conditions. We have bright sunny conditions. I guess that's evident, right? So anyway. This is such a neat little valley up here. We're actually up on a shelf, a step, I guess you would call it. And it looks to me like there are a few more steps before we're at the foothills of the forest range. But just really pretty. A nice day. We're in between storms. This morning, Craig had we weren't supposed to get anything, but we got between a trace and an inch, probably about half an inch of snow. But it was real light, fluffy, crystally type snow. The kind of snow that doesn't necessarily need clouds, visible clouds to fall. It just needs a little bit of moisture in the air. So another big step right in front of us. That's probably more likely, I would consider that a foothill if I had to name it. There are some, well, this is, like I said, this is just a very pretty area. It's isolated. It hasn't been built up too much. There's some gentrification going on. Whether it's a local rancher local ranchers who have decided to spend a lot of their money on ostentatious buildings, or whether it's somebody from out of state that fell in love with a piece of property and thought, well, we love it, but we probably do need a 60-room mansion here, or we just won't be happy kind of people. So there are some of those around here, some quite overbuilt places. If nothing else, they're interesting to look at. And for us regular people to ponder what it would be like to blow that kind of money on a humongous house. And if you have the money, why the heck not? So, so far so good. Try to keep a close eye on the camera. I was thinking about interesting things to consider, considering that I run this camera and I talk, and I would much rather stay away from raw politics. It's hard to do. Even if you talk philosophy, you're talking politics, but I just had an interesting thought that it would be fun to explore. And I like to do this, just come up with a thought and then just kind of hit it with ideas, try to use logic and reason on it and see where it goes. So let's give this a shot. By the way, I gotta wonder if this is a gravel pit. I would certainly be panning my tailings around here just to see what was, just to check, just to make sure. So I thought about this. A lot of people believe in God. a lot of people don't. I do believe in God, but I also believe that God wants us to have the ability to believe in God or not. And ask me why? Well, because there's no factual evidence that God exists. And there's no factual evidence that God doesn't exist. As much as the anti-God people are trying to find evidence that God does not exist, and as much as the zealot religious people are trying to tell you there's evidence that God does exist, at the end of the day, there really isn't. There are indicators, there are clues. Things will lean one way or another. But I think God exists, and I think that the answer is very, well, it's an answer that you have to think things through and then not be able to believe it or disbelieve it factually. And for that reason, I also think that belief is extremely important. And I've said it before, but you are allowing other people to choose your beliefs. In other words, if you're a conservative or if you're a leftist and you just do whatever the party tells you to do, whether you're conservative or leftist, I think you're making a huge mistake. I think that one of the most important things that we have on this earth is to believe things. So, but that's what I believe, and I can't prove any of this with fact. But that's the kind of the cool thing about it, I think. So that said, why believe in God? To me, the biggest argument comes down to the complexity of this earth. And I've mentioned this before. The two prevailing trains of thought are, or is, there is a creator who made this planet, who made this, a creator that's far beyond our ability to understand. That's the religious belief, I guess. And there are a lot of flavors of all these beliefs, by the way. So I'm, don't hold me down on that, because there are a lot of people that will say differently. They'll be nitpicky, or they'll be not nitpicky. Point being, that's one view. That's the pro-God view, the pro-creator view. Pro-creator, pro-create. So the other view that appears to be popular right now with the anti-God people is the idea of randomness, that there is no intelligence out there, it's only randomness, and throughout billions of years, randomness has developed into what we have today. That's the other prevailing view. I think that a little bit of thinking about that blows it completely out of the water. And furthermore, I think I've mentioned that I believe too that people that believe in randomness also may well believe they are the smartest people on the earth, the smartest people that have ever been, and maybe the smartest entities that could be. And as such, if they can't figure out how things work, then it has got to be randomness. Because they are so intelligent, right? They're so intelligent. Later on today, we'll be turning here. This is County Road 27 towards Rand. I just want to make sure that, yeah, there we go, great. That we're getting the full view of everything here today. So there are, like I said, there are theories about this, and I believe in creation. But I also think that God might well have designed some evolutionary characteristics to us people, and that maybe evolution isn't separate from God. But when people talk about evolution, the religious people get jumpy about it, and the non-religious people get cranky if well, maybe they don't get cranky. But I don't know that those things are mutually exclusive, because it seems to me that within people we have the ability to exhibit characteristics that help us in areas where we live. Like the color of our skin, our stature, and when I say stature, I'm talking about our physical shape. Heavy, light, muscular, all these things. And not only that, but the things that we focus on. So mentally, a certain degree of potentially neat tractor up ahead. Let's see what we got going on here. Come on. Trailer. Just see if I can get around this guy. Zip on around this guy. It is a neat tractor. We'll find if that's what that is. That may actually be a tractor that is being used, and it may be a tractor that someone's buying and restoring. That's a popular thing to do. So there are these two prevailing ideas. Obviously, things get political because the leftists, the communists, say no, we are gods. They probably do truly believe they're gods. I think they're imbeciles, personally, to believe that. And I'm sure they think that I'm an imbecile for believing that there is an actual God, a creator. So, But then again, I also think that is the design that was put here intentionally. So we have to think about this stuff. I mean, we don't have to, but if you're not, it seems like you're missing out on a very interesting thing. Well, like the idea that you can actually think things through and come to opinions or beliefs that are your own. That while you may have influences from everyone, you can still do that. You can isolate and look at something and come up with your own belief. And I think there's something hugely important about that, but I couldn't tell you what. But it does appear that the big questions in this world come down to belief. And I would call that a clue. You might be able to see some of these little cabins I'm talking about. It looks like there was a gravel pit. Could have been up a placer. A little placer out there to the right. So, what you believe in, as far as whether God exists or not, is a political thing, and it becomes a big deal. It's hard. You can't really skirt around that. But what about people who aren't sure? Is like people that they're just going to rely on other people to tell them what they believe, which I think is ridiculous. You should do your own homework. Don't copy off someone else's paper. However, on the other hand, I do believe in God, and I believe in the honesty of some of the things that you read in the Bible, you see in the Bible. One of them is everything is permissible, but not everything is advisable. So basically, we can do anything. That's what we're told. We can do anything. But it may not be in our best interests to do anything. So I think that's the shopping center for gold. By the way, that's tongue-in-cheek. Gould is not really much of a town. I don't know if you can even buy something there. I think you can, but so a lot of people just believe in God rather than not believe in God without conviction. Well, that's really an interesting question too, and that's kind of the question that or the thought that I had. What harm is it to believe in God or to not believe in God? Well, I think that we can say there's plenty of harm, because the communists and the conservatives, people that believe in freedom, are mortal enemies. And that puts believing in one or the other in quite an interesting position. So these are the mountains that I want you to see. I think one of the mountains is called the Seven Utes. Utes being an Indian tribe that lived up in this area. That were, of course, ran out by the cavalry. That's a whole complete different topic, but with a similar vein, because people back in those days did believe in God, but they believed in God differently than they believe in God. People believe in God now, and a lot of the war to free the slaves had a lot to do with the different ways people believed and how they've changed their beliefs, which I think is for the better. I'm sure everyone thinks it's for the better. I can't imagine anyone saying, "Oh no, those old beliefs were great." I really doubt that. Now, on the way back, we'll stop by the visitor center again, and we'll have to sit out in the car while I go. So, I guess really it is important to be honest with yourself and to think through whether you believe in God or not, because that one little belief, that one little thing is huge and could completely change your life if you've never sat down and you've never really thought about that before. I kind of went through that and I've come about what I believe, but I had to go through that, and it took me quite a while to decide that I believed in God, even though I was raised with that belief. But it's one thing to be raised that way, and when you're a kid, you go to church. And it's another thing to actually believe that. Oh, that sign's been beat pretty bad. These signs get beat by the snowplows. They come along and they throw big rooster tails of snow at these signs, and they really bash them up pretty good. I think they enjoy doing it. This is a pretty neat area in the spring and summer and fall. There are a lot of campgrounds around here. There are rest areas all over the place. Like they have, maybe the state had too many rest areas somewhere else, and so they exported all of them up on top of this pass. They're mainly on top of the pass and over the other side, and there are two or three reservoirs up on the other side of this pass. But these are some pretty cool mountains. These are the big mountains. They're not the biggest mountains, but I think there's some 13ers in here. when I thought about this subject, my first thought was, well, there's probably no harm in believing in God if you're unsure. Or there's no harm in acting like you believe in God. And maybe there isn't, but the idea that it puts you on one side of an ideological fence where the two different views are enemies and are at war pretty much constantly, that changes that thought. So I can't really I can't really go much further with that thought, and I guess at this point I'll stop. Sometimes doing this little exercise, I usually do it a little bit better. And sometimes it's really interesting how it unfolds. How you'll think about it, and you'll think about the logic, and you'll talk about it. You have to verbally mull it over, and then things can come out of it, insights that maybe you have never had before. And you could be doing this. I would recommend talking to yourself rather than just thinking. It seems like I think our brains, or maybe it's this. I think that when we talk to ourselves, we are still putting words out into this world, into this physical place. And when we're just thinking, we aren't really putting anything out here into this physical world, unless the thing that we're thinking about we're doing, like driving or whatever. But as far as ideas go, I wonder if putting them out in the physical world may not have some relevance of some kind. Or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's just a matter of, if you have a thought and you're thinking through things, if you say it aloud, it might carry more weight than the things that you're not saying. I don't know. And maybe that's an interesting thing to run through the logic reason loop and see where it goes. I think that's 7 units. Wow, you can't see it. I'm looking at it because look. My one difficulty, and it's why I want to film going up and coming down, is that I want to see which direction works better for this camera, because I can't really change the camera to show you a thing here and there without loosening the mount up. And I would much rather give you a better view, which means I keep the camera tightly connected to the mount so it's not jiggling around a lot, because it would otherwise. So we'll get to the top, we'll turn around, and we'll come back down. And maybe both directions will be a nice video, or maybe one direction will be better. We'll see. The proof is in what gets posted. Yeah. So these guys are getting a little bit of snow up here. It doesn't look like it's quite rabbit ears snow. Maybe not quite Gore Pass snow, but we're actually getting up here pretty high. I think that we'll be up over 10,000 feet when we finally get to the top of this pass. Now, unless the sign itself is covered up with snow, we'll see it. It should be a summit elevation up on the top here. In case you don't know, this is a way to get to the Front Range. Follow this road for probably another 70 miles, and you'll make it into Fort Collins. down on the Front Range. So roughly the Denver metro area. I don't know if Fort Collins classifies as part of the Denver metro area, but it seems like every year, if there's country between Fort Collins and Denver, it shrinks a little bit more. People put up more houses, or what, population grows. I think the summit is right here. Yeah, here we go. Here's the summit. Actually, let me go ahead and go here. Cameron Pass Summit. Elevation 10,276 feet. Larimer County. I did not realize that the summit sign was on the main road. I thought it was off to the side of the road. So we'll go down to the first reasonable turnout, although I could probably turn around anywhere here. We'll do this. So yeah, we're probably 50 miles from the Front Range right now, somewhere in that area. That's how far over, that's how far over I get. But I'm usually up north in Laramie. There's a really cool road called the Laramie River Road. It's down here a ways. I really don't want to go that far. So I'll see if we have rest areas open over here that I can turn around. And if not, I'll turn around on the highway. Just find a pretty much open spot. Here we go. That's really nice that these areas are still open, because it gives people a place to ski or snow machine or whatever the Forest Service has deemed you can do here. So it looks to me like these guys are skiers. But wait, there's a snowmobiler, and there's a snowmobiler. Okay. That wasn't a snowmobiler. I'm going to go ahead and pull over there. I kind of cut somebody off a little bit here. I'll let him get around me. There we go. A really good chance that the sun is going to be just blinding you over here. And it could do the same thing on the other side. We'll see. Kind of making an effort to go a bit slower so that the video quality is better. I don't know that it will matter as much on this side of the hill, because I'm sure seeing a lot of glare coming off the road. If you're catching that glare, it still might be a nice image You get the video version of the glare. I get the full effect of it. But that's a nice view. And the mountains, the thing about it is, in Colorado, well, actually any road is this way. You go down at one direction and it's one thing. And you change directions and it becomes completely something else. And that's definitely true for areas like this where we're driving through valleys and folds, and it's a neat way to look at it. And especially if you never do ever come here to Cameron Pass, it's still interesting. You can say, hey, I've seen both sides of the western side of Cameron Pass. Well, I've seen both. I've been over the top of Cameron Pass. I back down. So, gotta let these people get a bit ahead of me, I think. Oh yeah. And for you people that like to watch videos of people, going trucking videos. I've mentioned this before, but my sister has got a channel, and she does a lot of her work. She's based in Oklahoma, but she can end up going anywhere. Kind of like riding shotgun, he'll go anywhere. She'll go anywhere, but she prefers to be close to home. And her channel is called Woman at the Wheel. So if you want to give her a check out, dial her, search Woman at the Wheel and check out some of her videos. She has had, she's got several videos out, and she's just developing how to do it. I think she's got a better feel for than I do for what and how to film. I'm still figuring out what I want to film. Well, actually, how to film, I think I've got that down pretty good, because I've done YouTube videos for several years now on my other channel, Old Town. I'm proud to say, well, I'm not really proud to say it, but it's being honest. I have some of the shakiest videos that you've ever seen, and I build certain things. The one really popular video, well, two of them are relatively popular. One is a metal foundry. We like to cast metal. So I built a foundry out of relatively easy to find parts. Although I did go out and buy the casting cement. There goes our tractor that we passed earlier. And I have another one where I rebuilt a 50-ton jack and got it to work. I'm actually wanting to do another video of that. I want to put a different gasket in that particular jack. But that's on my Old Town channel. But I'm not talking about, I get so sidetracked so easily. So yeah, she does. She has stuff. She's gone all the way to the East Coast with trailers, and she'll haul pretty cool things. Like she'll haul a stack, 2 or 3 trailers stacked on top of each other. And I never knew this, but when people haul stacks, I guess it makes sense. You've got to use your own straps or chains or boomers or whatever you use. You probably have to use nylon straps. The trailer companies probably wouldn't like you using chains and boomers on their nice brand new trailers. Knocking paint off the chains, scratching them up, bending things. Crags. I think that craggy thing that we saw a few minutes ago is called Crags. Apparently a park is called Crags. You saw the sign. I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together. So you have to carry all these straps when you're doing these multiple trailers. And so she's pretty good about that. She's taking trailers everywhere. She does prefer smaller loads, and her and Bill, her husband, are working all the bugs out of a really cool, I think it's a 97 Ford diesel. It's a real desirable model. It's got a really desirable engine in it too. And I think Bill was telling me that engine is a Michigan engine. Was it international or Michigan? I'm confused. Maybe international. That sounds, no, maybe Michigan. Not international, I think. But they're working the bugs out of that truck, and it has bugs in it because she's driving it commercially, and every part is being put to test. And it's not like me driving this little car. This little car isn't, other than that it's incredibly underpowered and it will hardly pull itself uphill. It was designed extremely well to do exactly what it does by Suzuki. Suzuki built this little car, and they did a great job. This car has been incredibly dependable. If I had a piece of wood here, I would be knocking on the wood right now, because I don't want to jinx myself, if that's is a thing even. But this car has done extremely well. I make sure just to keep the levels filled, and I'm good. Her truck has had a lot of issues. It can't, apparently the vacuum pumps that go in those trucks are pieces of junk. She's been through 6 or 7, and they just said to hell with the vacuum pump. They took it out. They built an idler pulley. Oh no, they tried to transform a pump into an idler pulley. That didn't work well because they were using that same cheap pump, and it was still breaking. So they found the right size belt, and it completely eliminated the vacuum pump, just took it completely out. And they put an electric vacuum pump in that, which is a great idea, but they got that all tuned up, and there are videos showing them working on that. So it's really cool. Well, the latest thing is apparently there's a sensor in the fuel bowl. I'm going to call it the throttle body, but maybe it's the fuel filter. Actually, maybe the fuel filter. So it's a plastic housing, and it broke, was leaking diesel, and a sensor apparently malfunctioned, and she ended up stuck down in South Texas. And it was really cool because she got on the phone and she was talking to Bill, and they were able to troubleshoot the problem in real time, and she filmed it. It was very cool. And they got back on the road. She got back on the road. Between both of them, they're savvy. They got it figured out. Got back on the road. And so now I think that they're putting a new fuel pump housing in. I believe that it's an aluminum housing rather than a plastic housing. So they're upgrading that. So they've gone through several permutations, and then Bill said something about he didn't like the way that the underneath the radiator was exposed, and so I think he's going to build a bar or a skid plate. Well, a skid plate would be the wrong thing. Probably a bar. Put a bar in there, bolted in to, like put a mouth guard around the grill. Yeah, put a mouth guard around your grill. Save your teeth. That idea. So if you are so inclined, go check out Woman at the Wheel. And let me warn you, she will cuss for apparently no reason. So I give her crap about that. That's one of the things you're not supposed to do, or that is frowned upon, is cussing. I cuss a little bit. I try to minimize it as much as possible so that when I do cuss, it has the greatest effect. However, I break all kinds of rules, I'm sure, by talking about politics. However, like I've stated before, politics is not something that I really want to talk about, but any kind of discussion will devolve into politics nowadays, especially if you're a conservative, because we get politics pushed at us nonstop, ceaselessly. And I think everyone on YouTube knows that YouTube will censor people, and I find that pretty horrific because they censor people like me when I'm just trying to hold my own and defend myself against what the left is saying. And they find that too much. They find that over the top. Maybe not on my channel, but on several people's channels. So, what do you do? What do you do? But I have noticed that YouTube does have some conservatives, and they haven't completely shut conservatives down. And I'm glad to see that. Or maybe they're growing and getting an awareness to the concept. Really, let me talk. If I'm saying ridiculous things, most people will know. They'll go, yeah, that guy, he's ridiculous. Just mute his channel. Don't bother listening to him. That's how ideas should work, right? You have an idea. If people like it, they agree with you. If they don't like it, they disagree with you. And if they really don't like it, they disagree with you. And then they probably call you some bad names. So we're going to go here. We're going to use the finest facility in North Park, the bathroom facility. I will probably wash my windshield also before I get done. So take a note of the windshield now and take a note of it in a second. We'll see if I remember to do that. Anyway, I'll be back. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I'm recording. I'm still having a tough time seeing the camera because it is so bright out today. So a pretty facility. I like the big moose made out of bait. It looks like made out of barbed wire. That would have been fun. Somewhat. So they're open. The inside is open, and let me be clear about that. Always open. I've never seen the lobby closed, and the lobby is where you can stop at the bathrooms. So if you do head this direction. And yes, I cleaned my windows. I even cleaned my back window, which will probably be filthy in about 5 minutes or less. I think we have good camera power, so we'll catch the road to I do take great pains to keep this car clean. Not so much on the outside, but more in the wheel wells, underneath on the suspension, and in any places where if it had a buildup of something, it could cause a mechanical issue. I try to keep everything clean. So on a warm day, I'll invest in Laramie. I'll invest a few dollars and I'll get it taken care of. And Kremling is another good spot also to stop and get it cleaned up. But we're in this part of winter that no matter what you do to your vehicle, you can get it beautifully clean and then drive 5 minutes and it's filthy. And that's what's happening to this car. My back window is already filthy. Oh well, whatever. Well, I'm giving shout outs. Woman at the Wheel, YouTube, check her out. She's also on Rumble. So am I. And anybody, I think, that knows what, currently how YouTube has been, make it an extremely important point to download their videos in multiple places. And I'm looking for other places also. But I'd like to give a shout out to Google Earth. And yes, I know it's a Google product, but it's probably, in my opinion, it is a thing that I love. I mean, Google Earth is great. It did have its heyday a few years ago. Since probably 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, Google Earth has been de-emphasized somewhat, and Google Maps has come about. But Google Earth is really great. And more than likely, everybody that watches this channel has Google Earth, or they like Google Maps. I mean, some people like Google Maps. I like Google Earth because I've got a bunch of overlays, which are KML or KMZ overlays of mining districts and other geological features in Colorado and Wyoming. I find that really handy. But not only that, it's fun to, this is, okay. When I have spare time, and I don't have much nowadays, but I used to have a little bit more spare time, I was watching a Japanese guy. His channel is called Toyo. Ultoyo? I believe that's Ultoyo. Ultoyo. I believe that's how that is spelled. Maybe I'm wrong about that. You can probably search that on YouTube and find it if you're interested. This guy drives in areas in Japan. I don't know enough about Japan to know what different prefectures there are. I guess a prefecture would be like a county. Maybe a region would be a better way to say it. He has several videos of Tokyo. And one of the videos he had was called 4K Night Drive. I think it was a Sony 4K night drive. And he started out at a 7-Eleven. They're pretty popular in Tokyo. And then he went around C1 in downtown Tokyo. And C1 is a circle. Well, there's a C1 and a C2. So It was very, very neat. I followed him. I searched and searched and searched, and I found the exact area where he started his video, and I found every turn that he made. He went over the Rainbow Bridge. There's a Rainbow Bridge. I think they even call it the Rainbow Bridge. It's an English name. He's on Bayshore Drive for a while. Actually, he's on Bayshore Drive over Rainbow Bridge. Goes on to C1, does a loop in Tokyo, and it's really cool. Tokyo is an amazing city. And I'm not all that big on cities, but man, you know, those guys have really made Tokyo, it's just incredible. It's amazing. So cool. But so I followed Little Toyo's route, and I watched several of his videos, and I watched that video a lot of times until a point happened, a tipping point, where I understood that if I do end up going to Tokyo, I'll be able to find my way around Tokyo. Obviously, it will be a little bit different than sitting at home, watching it on my big screen TV, but I'll find my way. So that'll be pretty neat. All right, I have accomplished this filming. So I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for now and do some driving. I've covered this road already. I don't feel like I need to cover it again. This is County Road 27, and we're heading to Rand. We'll go right into Rand if you haven't seen that video. And from Rand, we'll catch Highway 125. That's where this intersects. This intersects with Highway 125. We'll take that up 4 miles, and then we'll turn off on County Road 28. And we'll take that across in an east-westerly fashion, roughly to the west, on the north side of the Rabbit Ears Range, all the way back to the other side of Highway 14. And then we'll take Highway 14 to Highway 40, go over Rabbit Ears Pass, probably get doused with dirty, nasty snow, because I imagine that snow's melted today and it's probably despicably disgusting. And hopefully get back to Craig. And I've got things I need to get taken care of, like we all do. Well, that's cool. I can see Rabbit Ears from here. Oh yeah, it's quite pointy. I'll show you that if we can get around here. And there's a snow fence built over to our left, which they were building the last time I came through here. They had their dozer up here, and they were just making that fence. It looks to me like it has caught a lot of snow. So yeah, we're right now looking sort of northwest, really. But the camera's going to swing around. And it's interesting that you can see Rabbit Ears from here, because it's the bitter western edge of the park. So there's Rabbit Ears. I'll bet that you can see it today. Yeah, in fact, I think it's the same spot that I saw it last time I was here. It's just that we had a lot of atmosphere. You couldn't really see it, but I bet you saw it today. So anyway, thanks for hanging out, and comments and questions. I try to get around, and I try to answer every comment. well, I'll look at every comment, answer every question. And I don't really badger people to subscribe. I figure that if you want to see more of these, you'll just subscribe. You know, you'll just subscribe. That was good. Now, I don't know if you noticed that, but this car tried to spin out, and I had to stick my foot into gas to keep it from spinning out, which is not something you do with a rear-wheel drive car. It got me right back in line. It got the front wheels back where they needed to be in the morning. So anyway, y'all take care and drive safe if you go somewhere, and yeah, we'll see you later.